everything's status quo. The wages are from a study that we don't have, so I'll need to have that study to even look at it and make a determination, but with everything being status quo, I know you say that we can continue to negotiate, but this hasn't been a negotiation. There's been no movement whatsoever. So if the city wants to make new proposals that are actually negotiation, we're happy to look at them. Otherwise, I see no reason to continue this.
Well, like I said, we're in negotiations. In fact, we've re-proposed or proposed status quo. I mean, look, in the end, what happens in bargaining, as you know and most people know, it's, you know, what are the most important things? And you're feeling us out as to what's most important. And we're trying to determine what's most important to you.
We've already told you the pension.
Well, we understand that.
So,
But there's other things to work through here. I mean, the 3 status quo articles we gave you were pretty close. There's only 1 pieces of them. I mean, you know, how important is one article over another article? Do you have any room to move? I know you know, you've made the same, you haven't moved off your initial proposals either. You've suggested changes, and we've suggested status quo. So can you accept any of the status quos? Or what's the most critical things to talk
what I
about?
can
We're
tell
here
you
to
is
talk about all of it.
we cannot accept pension status quo.
Okay, well, that may be.
With regard to the personal leave, or was it with holiday, the fact that they work hours and everyone else in the city gets the hours they work, their pay, and the officers don't, that's unfair. So that is very important to them. The personal leave, yes, it'd be nice, but I know it's not a sticking point. And yeah, and the hours worked, 80+4 is an industry standard now. It's not an exception to the rule. It pretty much is the rule now. So yes, those things are very, very important, but as I said, the pension is the most important. If we can't reach an agreement on the pension, it's not gonna happen.
And we're willing to continue to discuss it with the commission. But even assuming in the end, and I hope we don't get there, if we can't reach agreement on pension, we still need to knock out and get an agreement on the other stuff, on wages or on these other articles. So if it gets to a point where the commission has to resolve it, then, you know, they can look at what's, you know, really in the disagreement. So again, we're prepared to, you know, keep discussing, looking at counter proposals on these articles. I don't think these are the last of them. Aren't there some other open articles?
No.
So I got a question, Mark. So the pension, I think we've gone over our concerns with the pension quite detailed, and how the 185 money is being used. You guys haven't done in hard knowledge because we've asked for it and haven't been provided. How the same calculation of 544,000 continues when you have less people on the tier 1 pension. How that money stays the same all the way through. Was our concerns, those concerns, were they brought into the council, to the shade meeting, those specific concerns?
Yes, as I said, we're very transparent with them that you have concerns over, you know, the share plan or the tax dollar money.
Okay.
That you want to do away with the tier, or why you want to do away with it, what your concerns are. So again, we feel like we've apprised them, and we'll continue to do so with any new information, new proposals. Again, this isn't packaged where it's all or nothing. We're willing to talk about individual articles, get them off the table, and you know, see where we are in the end. Right now, you know, again, you gotta think about from the city's perspective a couple things. One, just on making the change. When they made the change, if they undo the tier and go back, then they've undone everything they did to try to, in their mind, be fiscally responsible at a time when, you know, pension costs were certainly out of control.
But we can look at the percentage of payroll that is going from back then to now of what the city's contributing to the pension. And this is off of the actuarial report right on to Ormond Beach. You're down to 30%, when back there you were up to 60. So, you know, there's.
Which means what they did worked, that they reduced their liability.
Right,
That was the
absolutely,
goal.
off
So
of
to
their
go back-
backs, correct.
On the backs of officers using the same frozen amount as when they had much higher pension.
So-
That's the problem.
I think the pension has to be handled before anything else, because I think with this being the pinnacle of it, the importance of all these guys here, you really can't talk about it. Yeah, we understand that it's money, it's the same pot of money, but this, how do we say okay to wages, or how do we say okay to holiday pay, when the number one, the elephant in the room is this pension, and you haven't got any authority to do anything to it? So then what's the reason, what's the purpose? We don't think that the money's being allocated correctly. That's, I mean, do we need to?
The pension money you're talking about?
Yeah, we don't think that the figure's correct. It
Well,
doesn't
I
make
think-
any mathematical sense that there's 16, around roughly 16 people on the old pension plan, and it's still 544,000 when the vast majority of the people on the pension plan are at the tier 2 side. So how did that money stay the same all these years? It doesn't make any
There hasn't
sense.
been one improvement to the pension since, what, 2008?
I think,
And things have been removed. Were they given our documents?
Well, I'm hesitant to, pension is not we're not the experts in that area, although I do believe that Kelly has mentioned that that excess gross amount did not cover the benefits that were purchased.
what she said.
No, the 540 is exactly what covered it. We just, the city had never gotten that amount.
Right.
But then, like I said, they removed 100% of the increases other than the 1% COLA.
Then the Naples letter did away with that
No,
The
it's
process.
not.
Naples letter did away with the frozen amount that the city had, yes, that's right.
But here's the problem, if you're saving money with the percentage of payroll that's going in, but the money of $544,000 is still staying the same, that's why you're taking all the share money, you're lowering the cost of the pension with their money. That's what we're saying, because clearly the cost, the percentage of payroll on this pension is down to 30-something%.
From 60.
From 60. So clearly, that 544,000, there's absolutely no mathematical way that I can look at that it makes sense that that money is still accurate. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about going back years. So I don't know, we asked to have a mutually agreed upon pension attorney, and you guys went and spoke to somebody. I don't know if we have the Department of Management Services conduct an audit on the pension. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that it's prudent to have the same attorney on an issue like that. And I think we've talked a little bit about, we hear your concerns, but we don't see it as a bargaining issue, right? If you have a concern about the actuarial report or something, that's happening with the plan, this is probably not the right forum for that, right? It's not a bargaining issue.
But it is
It's
a
not-
bargaining issue because the statute states that it has to be in the contract that the officers
How
agree
to
that
share
you take
the
that amount.
excess.
So,
Have to
yeah.
discuss how to share the excess.
And it has how to calculate what the excess is, what the number that you use for excess is. It
Right.
says that, it's the 2012 number.
Yes, and we conferred with our pension attorney, who opined that we were in compliance with the terms of our agreement,
But
with the
there's-
contract as agreed upon.
There are also two pieces to this conversation, just so we're sort of talking the same language. One, you're talking about share money, but two, you're talking about the plan change. Plan change has nothing to do with share money. You want to go from 275 to 3 for
But
everybody.
it does have to do with share money, based on what I said, that it's clear that the language used both in pension board meetings and in the MOU. The MOU regurgitates the statutory language, which would have had a 2012 frozen amount. Now, you're right, I don't know whether there were negotiations on what that meant. So I have to go based off the statutory language, but if that did mean the 544,000, then clearly the city intended on, once it was back up, giving those benefits back. So it does have to do with that, because that's the only way the city wasn't taking money that wasn't theirs, is if they intended on getting back to where it was, and that's part of what the contract agreement was. Because there's two ways to look at this. One is the city just got one over on officers. The other is the city did that so that the city could give them the benefits back again. Those are the only two reasonable ways to look at this, it being statutory language, but also being $544,000 and not the $212,000 that the 2012 amount was. So that's where I'm coming from, and since I'm an outsider, I've got to look at this and figure out if I were someone looking at this who would be judging over it, how would I read this? And what I came to is one of two ways. Either you intended on giving them everything back, or you intended to get one over on the officers and get everything paid down and reduce the city's contribution by 50%.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, the two options, but what we've determined is that that MOU did incorporate the $544,000, even though it's not in the MOU. That's what it was, and that's what it had been for years. Actuarial reports, board pension reports always recognize 544.
And here's my directed question.
So that's is what was intended by the MOU. So up to that point, now you can say it's different today, or we want a different deal, or something like that. You can certainly negotiate that. I'm saying there's two things. One is share money, but two is you want the pension plan put back, and how that's paid for or how that's covered. And you know, again, you're right, it saved us money. That was the goal. It was bankrupting the city or costing too much to not make that change. So the prior commission decided to make the change, and it has saved money and working. And at this point, the current commission is saying, you know, we don't think it's appropriate to undo the savings that the prior commission implemented, that we still need those savings, they're still in the city's interest. So again, sort of two issues to talk about.
But in the statute, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the statute, we're supposed to know what these calculations are. You guys
Yes.
haven't provided us anything. We asked you, how did you come up with $544,000 for each of these years since 2012? No, there is no record. So how are we agreeing that that $544,000 is still the amount of money with less people on the tier 1 pension, that's still the amount of money to fund the pension for the people that are working? How are you coming up with that number?
Yeah, well, I can't answer it. I don't think the side can answer it yet, but we will continue to do due diligence.
And that's the
look
problem,
into
is that
that
right
issue.
now, we've requested that, and the city says, we do not have anything documenting that, and we don't have anything about that.
I don't
So
think
here's
that's
my
been our
question.
response. I think we've given you all the documents you requested.
Yeah.
Right, but there's nothing to
The
show
answer
that
was
you
we
have, that
nothing
the
showing.
544,000 has sustained over all these years. That it hasn't, that commitment hasn't lessened. Nobody, you just can't say 544,000 in 2012. There's 70 people that was on that pension back then, and now there's 16. How is the money the same? How are you still taking that money if it's not funding the pension? Those 185 monies are supposed to be used for pension improvements.
Well, and this will be the easier way. Mr. Levitt, were you here during the negotiations 3 years ago?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, how was it sold to the officers regarding the pension monies?
I have to-
What were they told?
Why do you use that word sold to? Because I was here when they signed that MOU, and all of your members were aware. It was agreed to well before I got here. There was, I
Okay,
don't know what the sold
what
to
I'm asking is, what were they
is.
told?
They weren't, in bargaining, we weren't telling them anything. This was already agreed to, already discussed. There was never
Okay,
any issue, so I don't know
when the MOU was
why you're
signed,
alluding to, was there something happening?
Bad verbiage. When the MOU was signed, what were they told?
Everybody was in agreement that that was the number. That was the correct number. Everybody was in agreement. Absolutely. It's in the bargaining notes, it's in the pension board notes, it's footnoted in the reports.
No, the pension board notes do not say that.
I absolutely saw it in there.
I saw
The
the,
actuary.
I saw the
talked about it.
conversation.
The actuary referenced the 544.
the actuary said that that's what he was told the MOU says. The actuary never actually saw the MOU.
That's on the recording.
He says, I have been told there's an MOU that says this.
Just saying, people had access to that, and they saw that number, and it's never come up until today, basically.
Well, that's what I'm asking though. We have no documentation on that number, period.
Well, we've given you what we have. We hear you, and we'll continue to look at that. And if there's additional information or other information, that's what I'm saying. We're willing to continue to discuss and consider. As far as the other articles, I understand pension is the most important article to you and your members. But that doesn't mean we don't work through the other ones. I mean, are you telling me one thing you could do, I know you're not doing it, you say, we'll take everything else you offer, give us pension. The only thing, that's the most important thing to us, we'll agree to the status quo on these 3 articles. We'll agree to implementing the pay study. We'll agree to all that and give us the pension.
Just strategy-wise, from this side of the table, and I don't know, because I haven't had a conversation with, or we haven't had a conversation with them. If that's what you're offering, then we'll go back in the room and we'll talk about it, but that's not what you're offering. You want us to sign off on these other articles and then ask us about pension. So if you want to flip it, and we want to take care of pension and then sign off on these other 3 articles, if that's what you're asking me, then we can caucus and go back in there and ask them.
We're not making a proposal to change pension, but I'm saying if that's the most important, I'm not telling you how to walk in or how to package, but you could say, we will sign everything else if you give us this, that's your package. Then we know we've got everything else done, we've got wages done, all these other articles done, now we have to concentrate on the pension issue.
So what you're saying is you would like us to say that we'll take all these other status quo if the pension, on contingency if the pension is fixed?
I'm not telling you how to bargain.
I'm not
saying-
asking. I'm asking.
Right. I'm not saying that's what I want to do, because I want you to accept the pension too. I want you to say, we're done, we'll sign off and let's move on. So that's what we want. We don't want to have to make the change, but you're saying this is most important and until this is resolved. I'm saying, does that mean you'll take everything else if we can resolve pension?
No.
And there's different ways to get right. So we're not there yet. So let's talk about the other things, figure out what the
Well,
most
let's
critical
talk about
other
the pay
things are.
article first. So, the pay article that you're proposing right now for the wages is almost to the letter, the exact same offer you guys gave general employees. We're not general employees, so that's not gonna work.
Well, it's the same offer we gave to fire also.
Okay, we're not firing them.
The
Right.
fire's number 1.
We're here to talk about it, but
And that's part of the process, is to hear your feedback and what does this pay plan not,
Well,
what
here's
is
the
it
other
lacking,
We've already
where's
told
your?
you, we've already told you what it does and does not do.
Okay,
But-
well,
and
okay,
here's-
hold on though, so because all through the last couple of years, and you all know, the focus was, how do we hire police officers? What does that mean? That means starting wages.
No, it doesn't mean starting wages, that's one component.
One
that's
big
how you
component of it,
hire,
right?
then there's retention.
So our focus for the last several years has been recruiting and starting wages. And it's not just us, it's every single city in the country, right? Not even Volusia County, not even
Right.
everywhere. So it's important to keep in mind, I think it's important to keep in mind, we are in the middle of a contract that in theory should have started, in October. The primary goal with every contract, you're gonna identify goals, right? Like you have clearly identified pension as goal. Our primary goal in October 1 of 2022 was wages and recruitment, because you all, and every other department in the city was hurting drastically, right? I mean, everywhere, everybody was hurting. So our primary goal was, how do we get our wages up? How do we get our starting pay up? Wages, wages, wages. I mean, that is why we did the pay study. That is why we're focusing on this contract. We only have so much money to work with, right? It's a zero-sum game. We've got money in a bucket.
understand that.
So we really put our focus on wages. That is what we heard 100% from every department, and I think it was we were hurting. That is what we focused on here. We worked with fire a lot to figure out, here's our money in the bucket, how do we address our need of starting wages, and how do we address your need, fire, of where do you see inequities with your members, right? So that's what we did through most of bargaining, was how can we use these dollars so that your members feel like they have the right pay structure for them. When we did the last pay plan in 2016, one thing we heard was that from officers, some people got left behind, right? Like, it's never gonna hit every person 100% correctly. This year, with this pay study, we've really tried to change that approach to where we have this pay study, this is what we have authority to implement, this is an investment in the framework of our city, and then what feedback can you give us so that this fits your needs? You today have been talking about your longer term officers, your more senior officers, long tenured officers, maybe that's where you want to focus on. So we are absolutely here to try and find a solution for that. Like, that is our goal. That is our number one goal. Now, I hear you saying pension is maybe your
But
number
we
one
also
goal,
need
maybe
to
it's
set-
not. So maybe we have a little disconnect there, but is it, you know, are we at a place where we're saying, oh, we don't want to talk about this? You know, we don't want to work through this? I mean,
That's
I'm
not what
not,
we're
but.
saying, but I don't think it's, I think our proposal was very clear what our goals were. To raise the starting for recruiting, to increase and maintain retention, hence the 0.5% per year, to alleviate the compression that is already in place. So we understand that there's multiple things we have to hit here. That's why the proposal that we had more than just one area of focus. Raise the starting and alleviate compression.
And the other issue, we can't even really review this wage article because it relies so heavily on the compensation study, and we don't have a compensation, we don't have that.
Yeah.
So we can't even
You are welcome
analyze
to
this
it. It is
article.
a public record. It's on the city commission. It's on our website, but we can send you a copy, absolutely. But your proposal is $2 million. I mean, that's, we gotta work with that.
Then
That's
it's a $2 million mistake that was made several years ago.
But you
It
can't,
needs to be
if
fixed.
you think that, let's say we all agree, there's $2 million mistake, you can't fix that in 1 year. I mean, we don't have tax dollars for that, right? We don't
Okay,
have.
so then you're telling me this is the best that your wage proposal could come up
We
with?
didn't say that's
Do
the
you-
best, we said that's
do you
our
ever-
offer
do you-
today. We
do you
said
start
we're
with your
willing to
best?
talk about it.
I mean, we're here to negotiate.
Well,
That
this is what was proposed then by the company that you paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to come up with a wage study.
Because this is the framework that generally works, that we found was the most successful to apply to the city. And like I said, then we meet with each union and talk about, hey, what do you need different here? We did it with our unionized employees. Hey, where do you need to work on this? What are we missing? So this is our first offer. This is the framework. It's within our authority. You know,
Claire,
can we tailor it? Absolutely.
And
But
Claire, what you said earlier, like what you were saying, I agree to an extent, but you know what we're not addressing? I guarantee you, right now, we're at what, 68? Is that where we're at, 68? Okay. I can assure you that I know 5. This is how important that pension is. What we're looking at is retention, because I live in the city. And I'll retire in the city and I'll stay living here, right? So here's how I look at it, and this is how everybody should look at it. Retention, maybe to you guys, Greg touched on it earlier a little bit, doesn't seem like that important, because, we could just get 5 more bodies with that, bring them in with the, with that high starting salary. But I'm gonna tell you something. I supervise these guys, and I see the not the deficiency, just the learning curve, and how much attention some of these people need. And what's gonna happen is, some of these guys that can go to an agency, even if they're $1 underneath an hour, but when they retire, they don't have to wait to get their money. They could leave in 20 years. They could start a different career. Retention is what's the issue here. You guys aren't ready to lose 15 people. This department isn't ready, because we're not gonna be able to bring them back in with what we're offering. And I'm just telling you that, with all BS aside, and, all the dramatics and everything, that is really the truth. You have senior officers here that are ready to walk. They're waiting for this, because it's not worth it to stay. You have junior officers that are thinking the same thing, because they're young enough that they can go, why stay here and I have to wait till I'm 52 to get paid when I can go to Daytona, Bunnell, starting at 50 grand. So
And
it's
8+4.
Yeah, so I'm just telling you, it's the real thing here is, what's at hand here is a retention issue. It really is. I mean, it's, I'm tired of all the, dramatics, whatever. That is the issue. And we're not gonna be able to keep these people, and we're not gonna be able to bring them back. That's where we're at.
Well, to those people, the pension's not the big issue, because they're,
How do you know? I talk to them, you don't work with them.
I think you meant just the senior.
Because,
just
yeah, you're saying the senior people who will leave and stuff, I'm saying, but they're under the former tier, the first tier.
Right, there's
So
only
they're not
50.
leaving for pension.
Okay, so Mark, let me break it down for you. There's 10, okay, that are working. Administration has 1, 2, 3, about 4 of those. There's 16 people, so, I'm sorry, so there's 11. And the rest are in administration that have that pension.
That have the old pension, 11 have the old, everyone else has the.
Right, I mean,
lower tier.
and we're, you know, that includes admin, you know, like lieutenants and 1 captain and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you got pretty much 11 people looking at their wages, right? But the rest of the other 57 are looking at that pension. And I am telling you, we're not ready, right now as it is. If I'm 2 down, like the other day, we had just a crazy night with 2 people down. We didn't have enough people to work anything. I mean, we were just holding calls, and I don't know what it would be like here. And I'm just telling you from a frontline supervisor, a guy that's there, that's doing it, and talking to these people. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's a problem, and that pension is it.
And with the pension, you know, you have a state minimum. I don't know anybody, any law enforcement entity in this county that is at 2.75% multiplier. That one I can tell you 100%. I don't know one. There may be one, but I don't know it. And the units that we have, even Port Orange is at least 3%. So you're having a minimum standard on what you're supposed to do with the pension, and you're taking all this money. There's even a thing in the statute that says if you're at the minimum, that you're only allowed to take so much percentage, and you're taking 9%. So the guys with 2.75%, or 2.75 multiplier are paying 9% into the pension. When the statute says five. So how is that even, it doesn't make any sense. Those are, and we don't even know how much it would cost, how much it would cost to put everybody on the tier 1 pension, as opposed to, we're not gonna give you our portion of the share money anymore. So.
Well, I do think our plans are compliant. They are, you know, I will stand by that, but I do wanna recognize, we understand and we take seriously the retention question. So I do hear you on that, and unfortunately, you know, I wish you were the only one saying that. You know, it is, like I said, it is everywhere and it is real, and we appreciate it and understand your concerns there.
But that is, if you talk to, you know, you just think about it. You start here, we hire them 19, 20 years old. So even if they did the 25, they have to wait a bunch of years to get paid. It doesn't work for them.
Yeah, I hear you. I also, you know, I'll give you the other side, you know, the HR side, because we're HR and we have to. You know, when employees leave, and this includes police officers, it rarely is about money. Sometimes it's a part of the equation, sometimes it's a factor, but it is almost never the primary reason that somebody leaves a job. We all know there's lots of reasons you work here. We're not the top paid. You are the best officers, you could go and get the top dollar, right? You could go to the highest paying agency. So we know it's not all about money, but I know that's important to you. But it's also about where you work and who you work with and the leadership and the culture and the benefits. And there are a lot of things in these proposals that maybe aren't the most important things to you, but things we can certainly talk about. I know it doesn't make up for some of your big asks, but there are things that we can work with.
3 of the last people
Try and
that
get
left us went for other higher paid agencies.
Well, and since we're
Yeah,
talking
but
about.
I also know that they didn't leave because of that. They just happened to be higher paying agencies, or there were other factors at play. So we do get that information, and we do track it, look at it. So we're not trying to bury our heads in the sand here.
Well, and let's just, since it's been happening, compare it to Port Orange since we're on pay. City manager for Ormond, 200,000, Port Orange, 73,000 a year. City attorney for Ormond, 182, for Port Orange, 148. Public Works Director for Ormond, 153, Port Orange, 137. So all the head jobs, we can be above Port Orange, but they're telling me the police aren't worth being even at Port Orange. That's
That's
a problem.
not a great comparison, but,
Okay.
I mean, we can give you, I mean, we can give you.
How is
some-
it not a great comparison?
We can, it's like,
It's positions that you're
Cherry-picking your
comparing us to
positions.
our sister city, which is Port Orange, that was out of y'all's mouth, they're our sister city. And there are multiple positions that are higher paid, but we're not.
yeah, sometimes we're gonna be higher, sometimes we're gonna be lower. We
I
just talked
understand,
about
I
that.
understand.
Like, it's
Mark,
gonna
You
go
know
higher.
what's behind that? How long's the man been there, that the new city manager?
But
How long they been
$24 an
there?
hour compared to $21.28 an hour, that's a huge difference.
Uh,
Even with the $1.53.
Well,
doesn't
Dr.
push the rest of
Brady
the-
brings you up to 23.
And again, that was last year's
24.
increase. So we're talking the old increase. We're not even talking about this October's increase yet. So
Right,
again,
another
there's,
5 or 6% this October, so now you're over 24. Now, they may, you're in bargaining with them, they may leapfrog or whatever, but we're gonna, if we implemented what we propose, we'd be at the same pay.
Okay, so since you guys said that we went high with what we wanted, and then you guys went status quo, wouldn't it be easier for you guys to give us your best offer?
well, because as Mark said, we don't know what's important to you. There's several things in these articles. So that's why we're having the discussion of what's most important to you.
And there's ways to fix. If you come out senior people, there's ways to talk about tweaking our proposal to try to potentially put some extra money in senior people.
Right, do you want those funds going to your senior officers? Do you want those funds being spread out on that overtime issue so that everyone gets it? Or are you trying to reward people for certain things we're not aware of, certain incentives? I don't know that.
And when
information
everyone
yet.
compares that, what we're talking about, you're talking about, everybody always talks about starting pay. Port Orange is at 24. I don't know, maybe we're good or bad. How's the 10-year officer here versus there? Maybe we're terrible, I don't know.
They have a
I have to look at it.
step
But
plan.
I'm saying you gotta look at that, and if you're saying starting pay's not important, maybe we don't need to go to 24, leave it at 22, and take that extra buck and reapply it somewhere else. It's something to talk about. I'm not suggesting that, because we also think starting pay is important to be able to recruit, but you're saying it's not important.
No, that's not what we said. We said that's one portion of why we constructed the offer.
That brings them in the door. How do you keep them?
Starting pay
Oh,
and
we
tenure.
agree, we're trying to, but that's year 2 at the compression. We do have a plan, whether it fixes it or creates enough of a difference, I don't know. But that's why year 2 is intended to retain
Correct,
and
if it
correct.
wasn't based off of the rank or the assignment, because that
So-
creates compression once again.
Yeah, so we really do need to talk about where you want these dollars spent, because we don't know. But I will say, so your proposal, if you took an officer that makes $53,000 a year, which is $24.50 an hour, and that's the average rate, they would go up to $80,000 by the end of the contract.
That's not,
No.
It's a 44% increase.
okay.
Your proposal.
So it's just,
That's not what we proposed.
that is, I absolutely calculated your proposal, to the cost on that. So ours would be that same person would go from 53 to 67. It's a 25% increase. That particular person, because I did the average salary and the average years of service, got a more significant compression formula. They got a 15% compression formula, so that's a 25%. So you can see how, it does vary. And that's where you can look at that compression formula and look at, is this really going where we feel the need is?
Proposed for total years. Total years, yes. But how are they doing it?
Time and grade.
Yes, so you and I would only have 2%. Correct. They would create
So maybe, fire wanted to do a years of service, wanted to put some money into years of service. We still did a time and grade, right, and then did a years of service.
Yes, we did it
top of
based on
that.
years of service.
So the first year in the wage
Versus-
So it
proposal,
would
how
be
much
years
was
of
that
service
worth?
and time and grade?
Six,
The
I
total
haven't
now.
looked at it, but we did a years of
You said the
service.
total 3 years was 484, but what's?
So I think we did
What's
the
the first
compression
year broken
as
down?
is,
Is
but then
that
we also added
dollars
years
or-
of
Yes,
service.
dollars, total
And they're
dollars.
really focused
I
on
don't know,
the
I have to
tenured
look on our spreadsheet.
officers.
Like 200, you think?
Maybe a little less, yeah.
just shy of 200.
But I will point out, fire had less compression
probably right around there.
happening.
Okay.
So they were majority 3%, whereas you guys.
I hear
are a
what you're
little bit
saying.
more up and down.
You got a,
You
you
have
got an
more
amount that
compression
this is your
happening
frozen amount,
Within your ranks.
correct?
Less turnover.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Right, and so when they
we've always
moved
had
that
some wiggle
dollar up,
room,
it
but-
really just
It
moved
moves everything.
everybody.
And we wanna keep
Yeah.
the structure,
So
we're trying to keep the
they
structure of the
benefited
pay
more
plan and
from-
tailor it.
Whereas I think if you guys see.
You know, we don't wanna
you'll
throw out
see
the
that
whole
there's more
bucket, but-
movement just in there for you guys.
Hey, we don't want to throw that out and just say, okay, here's 5% or 6%. We think,
Because it achieves some goals, you know, we feel like it achieves some goals, but we can be flexible on those goals.
Right, but
Right.
I'm still hearing the same, but the amount's still gonna be the same, the 484,000.
Yeah, it was 479.
479.
And again, that's, you know, that's the authority we have. We certainly, if we come up with something that we all think works really well, we absolutely, I mean, we will be back to the commission several times during negotiations. We usually do several shade meetings in our communication with them during the process.
We'll wait and get that stuff so we can take a look at it, I guess. Right. We good? We done?
So we'll send you the pay plan.
Yes.
If there's any other numbers we think are helpful, we'll send them.
I wrote down
So,
the other articles, what
you
they're.
know, just reiterating or tagging on to what Claire's saying, you know, for next time, be thinking about it as a way to tweak, as she just said, use the plan as the basics, but tweak it. We're not telling you it's our last dollar, and it's like buying a car or anything else. You're gonna say if you're buying a car and it says, give me one more dollar, you know, are you gonna pay one more dollar? Sometimes you do draw a line in the sand and you walk for a dollar, I guess, but most people don't. You say, okay, so we never say never. You tell us, give me a nickel more, give me a penny more, give me X more, give me $1 more, whatever the number may be. We've got room to discuss, we've got a little wiggle room, but we need to keep the basic thing, and we certainly are not in position to give a 51% wage increase over the next 3 years.
And wages we can play with, pension, we really can't. 80+4 is standard now. I mean, like I said, only Ormond and South Daytona, from what I know, are still doing 84, and South Daytona is
No,
going
it's
to
Orange
the
City.
80+4.
South Daytona is 80 straight.
Oh,
It's
Orange City, my bad. Orange City is the only one, we're negotiating that now. And they're going to an 80+4, so Ormond would be the only one in the area with an 84-hour work week. So I mean, that kind of, you know, is going to the standard.